Absolutely. I talk to my characters. I try to write dialogue in a way when I'm talking to them. And it's one of the things that I do when I'm trying to get through writer's block. Is I'll have full-on conversations with role-played conversations with, sometimes actually I use ChatGPT for it. I'll have a played conversation and have a conversation with the program talking back to me, because it brings you into a comfort zone of a casualness, and it can help me talk through ideas. If I don't have my cousin Jeff, my co-author, which, I mean, greatest thing I ever did in the world was deciding to do this with him, because the ability to talk through things with somebody. But like I said, I work graveyard shift at 3 a.m. when I don't have somebody to talk to. Sometimes talking to the computer's pretty good.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I have a great gentleman here on the show. We're going to be talking about his books and his writing, and all things around storytelling, because that's really important as an author, to tell a great story, and Joe's going to help us with this. I'm excited to have him here on the podcast. Joe, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. So glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Dave. I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. Tell everybody, Joe, where are you located? Where are you right now?
Right now, I am in a little town called Oxford, Mississippi. It's home of Ole Miss, the University of Mississippi. It's really this wonderful little small city, metropolis, in the middle of the forest and nowhere, Mississippi.
Nice. What's the population? How big are we talking here?
When the students aren't here, it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 30,000 people, and triple that when student and class is in session.
There you go. Wow. Excellent. It's great to have you on the show. I like to start off here with my guests. I'm always curious about the author journey and how an author gets to be where you are. There's a path. There's something happened that kind of put you on this path. What was it for you that got you interested in becoming an author?
Well, it started probably when I was young. My dad was career military. He was in the military for 35 years, and he was an avid reader. So when we were young, we moved around a lot. He didn't like us being on TV so much, so he would actually sit and read to us. So we grew up listening to Ernest Hemingway and Louis L'Amour. A lot of Louis L'Amour. But that was really kind of what got me started more on the path of storytelling and less of writing. Because it's actually a little quote that I believe I told you when we first met. It's a quote that I live by and I love, that in a world full of writers, I want to be a storyteller.
Yeah.
Right? So at the crux of it, there's always a great story to everything. And my dad's love for reading and everything really got me into it. When I was probably 14, 15 years old, I started writing myself. My dad, we were always moving constantly, so I was always a new kid. Didn't have a lot of friends, spent a lot of time at home. And I got engrossed in books and engrossed in reading, and started writing and making up my own stories, my own friends, and these unbelievably deep and fleshed out characters for a 13 or 14-year-old.
Nice.
But that was where the love of it started. And I guess when I was probably 15, 16, I fell into sports and athletics in school, and writing kind of went on the back burner, and left it for years and years. It was always kind of there. Even I moved around a lot after I graduated high school, and it was always something I would go back to a little bit and write, a little bit of a story here, a little bit of a story here, a little bit of a story here. And I always had family, my brother, my cousin, my dad. I'm sorry, not my dad, actually. He was kind of indifferent on my writing. He never discouraged it, but he never really supported it, right? It was just something that I did, right? He just acknowledged that, I write. It didn't seem like it was anything. But unfortunately, we lost both my dad and my brother in 2019. And right before COVID hit, and it was a rough couple of years and took a lot of emotional and mental healing for me and my mother. And after it, we got to where we were cleaning out a lot of my dad's old belongings. And in the course of it, we found a box inside it. We opened it up. There were a bunch of old black and white 8x10 photos that he took when he was in Vietnam. It was one of his hobbies. He loved photography, and his USMC pocket watch that he got when he got out of the Marines, and the original first handwritten manuscript from the first story that I really completed when I was 15.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was a highly emotional, intimate moment for me because, I mean, I'm a big macho, hairy guy, but I mean, I'm a big softie.
Right.
And I guess that's really kind of what my dad was too. My dad was an old school Texas cowboy and a Marine forever, but he always had
Yeah.
that little kernel of softness up inside him somewhere. And the fact that he kept that manuscript, uh,
Right.
it told me it was time. So right before Christmas of 2023, I started writing my first novel. And now
Hmm.
here we are 10 months later, and I've written four.
So, okay, let's go back. You mentioned that he didn't outwardly support your writing, like
Mhm.
encouraging it or all that, but to know that he held on to that and that was something important to him, that he had your manuscript, like, that's kind of like, how does that make you feel in the moment then?
Oh, man. It was a lot of boogers and tears between me and my mom,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So to say it, kindly, when I found it, it was one of the most heavily emotional moments I've ever had in my life,
Yeah.
right? To find out that, like, never thought in a million years that he cared anything for my writing,
Wow.
right? And the fact that he had that in his own small personal box of his personal stuff,
Come on. Right.
right? Getting a little misty eyed here just thinking about it.
Yeah. Come on. Come on. All right. Whew. All right. Yeah. No, I just, like, it's kind of like, you'd want him to say he is encouraging you. You'd want to hear the words,
Right.
right? But just to know that that meant something to him, that's a great moment. That's a great moment, Joe. Really.
Right. It was kind of one of the things, man. It's like I took it as a sign. I
Yeah,
was like,
for
yeah,
sure.
I hear you, Daddy. It's time. I'm 45 years old now. Time to get off my ass and actually do it.
That's a great moment. Like, okay, so I don't get that kind of answer to that question on a regular basis. Like, how did you start? What was the spark that got you writing? That's pretty unique, Joe. That's a unique story. I love it.
It yeah, it's like I said, it's pretty intimate to me myself.
So you get your start in writing, you have that support from your dad that you've always wanted and you see that happening in real time. Where did you learn? Like who was there to help you learn how to do all this? Is it just self-taught? Like how did
Man,
that develop?
David, let me tell you, uh, I have been gifted with my entire life that I learn on an accelerated learning curve. And it's been my
Okay.
greatest advantage in my career and things in my life. And when I tell you, I have learned more in the last 10 months than I have in any other 10-month period of my entire life. It
Wow.
is not an exaggeration. There is so much that I had no idea that I didn't even know, right? It is a monumental task to do everything on your own because I am
Hmm.
completely 100% self published, right? And I mean, I've done everything. I do the covers, the interior art, the layouts, the design, the formatting, everything. I've had to teach myself.
Wow. Wow.
Listen a lot, ask a lot of questions, take criticism emotionally,
Yeah.
right? And work. Just plain and
So
simple work.
So, like, I know, like, my wife and I just did some renovations on a house, and you learn all these new skills and talents and abilities that you didn't know you had because you got to figure it out. And so we did stuff, and I'm like, well, I taught myself this and I taught myself that, and then the project's done, and you're like, what am I going to do with all this knowledge that I have now? I figured out how to do something new, And until I get another place, I'm not going to need this information. I wish I could help people with this information that I've now learned how to do these things. You know all these great things to do now you've taught yourself. Have you thought about using that to help other authors who are early
Uh,
days in their journey?
well, I actually have a, friend of mine, a younger guy. Well, I'll say younger. I think of him as a kid because when I met him, he was 15 years old. That's been 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But we've been talking over the course here recently, and he was inspired. And he's a big D&D game player, big Dungeons and Dragons guy, and him and some of his friends had taken campaign notes from one of their D&D games, and he wanted to turn it into a book. So I actually went through the entire process of I worked as an editor for him. I helped format for him and everything. I did the cover for him and just got him to publish his own first book. His name is Criven Kenneth Bailey, and the name of the book is Dream World. But I just saw it up on Amazon yesterday for the first time. So that was, yeah, absolutely.
That's
Uh,
great.
yeah, when he sent me, he had posted. I feel kind of bad about it because it was not really arrogance, I guess, but he posted a picture of the first initial cover he did for his book. And he went through and he did use the KDP cover creator, which is very, very restricting. Right.
Hmm.
And when he posted the cover for it, and it was pea green and purple and just horrible.
Yeah.
I just as a hey buddy, I did something for you and I sent him a new cover.
Nice.
Right. But
Just to help
no,
them.
even with
Yeah.
that, it was something that I really, really feel that as indie authors and self-published authors, something that we don't do enough in this community that I actually try to strive to, and I've got a few connections and friends that I do it avidly with. We don't share enough of each other.
Yeah.
We don't partake enough of each other. Right. With Kenny getting his book done and everything like that, I was very happy to do it for him. I spent a couple of days working on it. Right. It wasn't the end of the world with it. It's a very short book. It's only like 30,000 words. Uh, I've got another good friend. I believe you've had her on your podcast, E.S. Oliver.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
she has a font of information and knowledge.
Just amazing.
Yes, she is a wonderful person and a wonderful writer. And I discuss a lot of things with her back and forth on marketing and advertising, and she just knows things that I never would have thought to ask. One of the things that I really tried that I want to do, but I can't really do it without anybody's permission. I want to put links in the back of my ebooks to their books, to other authors.
Nice.
Like
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Recommended books.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Recommended books. I don't understand why we don't do it. Why it's not done more often. It's books that I enjoyed. It's just cross platform, just cross supporting one another.
Nice.
Uh, as far as sharing knowledge and formatting and stuff, as much as I can on my website, thebardking.com, I've gone through and done a blog series of all this stuff that I never knew I didn't that I needed to know.
Right.
Literary terms that come up when you're talking about formatting a book. What is a gutter?
Yeah.
The proper way to set margins, mirroring your margins. What is leading? This is all things that you've got to learn if you're going to do it on your own.
Yeah. I love that you're taking that knowledge and helping other people. So, at my role as a podcaster is I like to get authors on the podcast so that we can talk about what they're doing, so we can get more promotion to help them out. So, as you cross paths with authors that you help, please send them my way because I'd love to have them
Absolutely.
on the show so that I can promote them as well, and I can be that part of the process. You're helping them write it. You're helping them format. Maybe I can help in the promotion. Any authors you come across, please send them my way. I'd love to have them come on the show and talk about their journey too.
Yeah, I'm in several different writing groups. Several different writing groups, which I mean, I don't pretend to be the greatest writer. I have no formal education,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the last time I took a writing course, I was a sophomore in high school, right?
Yeah.
I am an avid reader. I've read a lot and I've learned a lot through reading. But other than that, like I said, I don't claim to be the greatest writer. I like to tell a good story. I like to tell stories that evoke emotion.
Yeah.
Even if it just makes you angry. If I can evoke any kind of strong emotion, then I feel like I've done what I want to do.
Okay.
Things that
So, and
things
yeah, yeah,
well, I feel that it's like things that make us feel become more memorable.
right,
Right.
right. So, in addition to emotion, what are other elements of a good story?
Well, there's the traditional answer. You've got to have conflict, a protagonist and antagonist. But really, I guess it depends on the type of story you want, because it
Yeah.
all boils down to emotion, and what we're all really seeking from it is an escape. We want to escape from the mundane and escape from everyday life, escape from the stress that is this world that we live in. Right. So if you can create an immersive environment where somebody can go into it and they can forget, you know, Bobby and Debbie's got soccer practice tomorrow. If they can forget that the boss is on their neck about, you know, quarterly end reports, if anything that you can do to immerse them in a world outside of what we have to deal with on a daily, I think is what tells a good story. Uh, Types of stories, again, like I said, in an adventure story, you want to evoke some type of joy,
Yeah.
right? In horror, I mean, you want to make people creeped out, be afraid. I kind of like to do a lot of psychological things in my writing. Uh, Very nuanced and understated. I can't really go into it without giving huge spoilers away in my current series that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Don't do that.
but
Yeah.
yeah, but I do like aspects of schizophrenia are
Hmm.
very challenging and very interesting to write,
Hmm.
which is other things that you have to go learn about. Uh,
Yeah.
one of the things that I loved about Louis L'Amour is every location he ever wrote about in any one of his stories exists. It exists in real time. Like every location he ever wrote about in the haunted mesa in Pueblo, Colorado, this mesa's here. This rock, this stone that he talks about as a landmark, it exists.
Yeah.
So his ability to create a suspension of disbelief outside of reality is something that I love and I adore. So even in a high fantasy, epic fantasy story, if I can add elements of realism and real reaction, real emotion, real trauma, real head trauma, real psychological issues, then I think that tells a good story.
What do you What do you think makes a story sticky? I love when a story sticks to me and I can't get away from it. What makes a good sticky story?
Characters,
Okay, good.
characters, characters, well developed characters. If You're going to remember a story if there was a character, a main character, a side character that you fell in love with, right? If you can associate with them, or you can admire them, or you can connect with them on some level, that character is going to stay with you. Like you said, sticky,
Yeah.
right? Great example, Patrick Rothfuss, Kavoth,
Mm.
right? Haven't read the book in 10 years, right? Kavoth is still one of my favorite characters. Even Lord Haliax, he has a very
Mm.
small role in the book whatsoever. He's the eventual foreshadowed antagonist, right? But he never really does anything in the book. But he's mentioned about, he's talked about, and he's sinister in a way that you feel, and it's deep in you and you connect. But like here it is 10 years ago, and it's an unusual name, and I can remember Lord Haliax. I remember that guy.
Right. It's sticky. I like that.
Right. When
Yeah.
you talk about authors, Margaret Weiss, Tracy Hickman, that did the wonderful Dragonlance series and everything for years and years. R.A. Salvatore with his Drizzt books and the Forgotten Realms books. What do you remember about those books? What do you
Mm.
remember about those stories? When it comes to
Right.
Dragonlance, you don't remember the weapons they used. You remember Raceland and Karaman Majir. You remember Tasselhoff Burfoot. It's the characters that drive the story.
So when you're developing a new character, what's your starting point?
Man, I am the biggest pantster rider you ever met in your life.
There you go.
I literally, Dave, there's times I'll be walking down the stairs at work, completely focused on something else, and just a random thought pop in my brain. And I'll have to text my cousin, my co-writer, hey man, what do you feel about doing like this in the story? It can come completely out of the ether. The name Terranholt, which is the main name of the first kingdom that we visit in my novels, actually came from a dream. I had a nightmare and I woke up and the place that these people were searching for in the nightmare was called Terranholt. And it stuck with me and it stayed and it's been in the book.
Wow.
The main antagonist, his name is Jareth. That happened because I was picking on my cousin, whose name is Jareth, and I was made the bad guy. He's like, well, I'm just going to call the bad guy Jareth. And over the course of time and us writing this book, it's like, his name is Jareth, bro. It's stuck.
It's in there now.
It's there. It's there. Yeah, he hated it for a while, but now he's just like, no, it's Jareth. But
how many books do you have in your library right now that you've written?
I have written Chronicles of Bard Kings, Volume 1 and Volume 2, which are Tempest of Shadows and Shadow Symphony. I've written Rise of the Stormlord, which is Jareth, the main antagonist, origin story. And I've written Shadow of the Crimson Lily, which is an origin story to another one of the tertiary characters in the book named Lissa.
For any one of these, just so a new author that's listening, just to give them a time frame, what is your beginning to end time frame for any one of these? How long would it take you to write one of these?
Well, it varies. Yeah. Tempest of Shadows, I actually wrote completely in 6 weeks.
Okay, wow.
About 6 weeks. But it was awful. It was terrible. Right?
Okay.
It wasn't terrible. I mean, it's the same story, but I was rusty and I hadn't written in years. And I went down something that we had talked about that I call the Tolkien hole. Mm-hmm. Everything was super over dramatized and overly explained and overly descriptive. Right. And it was a slog to read. It's like, yeah, it's really pretty and the prose is pretty, but man, it took me 20 minutes to read through 2 paragraphs. Right. So I went back and completely revised it. So I actually rewrote Tempest of Shadows completely front to back.
Wow.
Right. Now, Rise of the Stormlord, I wrote in 3 days.
Okay, so what was the spark for that one? Like what caught, like why so quickly? What was the origin for that one?
Oh, man. So Rise of the Stormlord, okay, now I kind of cheated when I say I wrote it in 3 days. It was originally going to be the prologue for Tempest of Shadows.
Okay.
Right. And I started writing it and I started, because Tempest starts out, it started out flying out the gate. Right. It's like the book starts out with Terranholt being assaulted and being attacked and the castle is falling. And the main actual protagonist of the series is born in the first chapter.
Okay.
Right. But there was no background on who these people were that were attacking. There was no, why is this happening? Why are they doing this? This doesn't make sense. So I started to go, okay, well, we got to give Jareth and his people a little bit of background so people understand what's going on. And I started writing it, and my prologue became 10,000 words. So my prologue was like 30 pages. And I completely scrapped it and said, no, that's no good. And set it to the side. So,
wow.
So then when I got done with the book And going back and looking at things, I kind of looked over at it and went, it'd be really cool because I actually wrote Shadow of the Crimson Lily first. We finished Tempest, and I wrote Shadow of the Crimson Lily on a whim because I really liked the character Lissa in the main book, and I wanted to give her more depth. I'd
Hmm.
also never written a book from a female point of view.
Okay.
I'd never written a book I'd never written a story where the female was the main character, and I
Yep.
had never written in first person.
Wow.
Everything I'd ever done was always written third person omniscient, right? Or third person past tense. So
Yeah.
I wanted to try it, and I wrote Shadow of the Crimson Lily, and uh, it probably took me about 4 or 5 weeks to write it, right? But it's a very short story too. The whole story is only
Yeah.
30,000 words,
Yeah.
right? It's a novella.
Yeah.
But I did that, and what it wound up being was her origin story, and I was like, hey, I really like this idea of having a companion series for all these really great characters we have in the main series, that we can do this Tales of the Satori, which the Satori are the elite military force of Jareth. And we can do
Okay.
this Tales of the Satori series, and we can kind of highlight each one of these main characters with a little bit of a background. And I went back and wrote Rise of the Stormlord, which has also became its own series now. So,
Peace. Wow. Now you're doing all this and you're balancing working.
yep.
You work away from home, so you're not even at home. So where is your place that you go to write when you're not at where you are right now? Like what's your setup? Where do you find your inspiration in that quiet spot to write?
Oh man, I steal it. I steal every
Do you?
minute I can get. Honestly, hopefully my bosses don't hear this too much. I work the graveyard shift.
There you go. There you
I
go.
work the graveyard shift, and sometimes I'll write on my lunch break.
Yeah.
Right,
Good.
I'm a shift manager. In the middle of the night, sometimes when I've gotten everything done, I have nothing else to do. I'll steal writing 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll come in at 6 in the morning and I'll stay up till 10 in the morning writing.
Nice.
Right. So it's like I steal moments. I steal
But
moments.
you're always thinking though too. Like you mentioned, you're coming down the stairs and bang,
Right.
you got an idea. So your mind is always engaged and thinking while you're still at work. So yeah.
Man, my mind is like a hamster on a wheel, bro. It's my brain is running in 37 different directions at the same time all the time.
So for a young author that's listening, they're new to writing. Um, what kind of words of wisdom do you have around creating space to write, being creative, capturing your thoughts in the moment? Like, what do you
Catching
do?
your thoughts in a moment. It's a very good point. Something that I do when I have those little thoughts. And sometimes I'll have random thoughts. I'll be watching a movie and I'll
Yep.
notice something that they did in the movie and I'll be like, hey, I like that. I can adapt that. I can use that. I actually write on my phone, the notes app. I'll write a
Good.
little bit of the app, exactly explain the scene and what they did. And I'll save it. And whether I use it or not, who knows? But, I do that. I write a lot of notes to myself on my phone. I text
Yeah.
myself a lot. I text myself a lot because it's easier to find that way.
Yep.
Right? Just when I have random thoughts, like you said, thoughts in the moment. You never
Yeah.
know when something will inspire you.
Yeah. Somebody
Right.
told me a long time ago that you should live your life like that article of clothing, like a sweater or something that everything sticks to. So if you have a dog or a cat, you got hair everywhere. Stuff is sticking to you, little pieces of lint. Like, it's like, where does this come from? Right. But let life stick to you. Let those stories and ideas, let them find a home on you so that you can look over at your shoulder and go, oh, yeah, that character idea. Oh, that location. And you're pulling these things off of you that just seem to cling to you. They said that's probably one of the things I would recommend to authors is let life stick to you. Find a way to capture those thoughts. Don't try to remember. Let technology be your memory because you will forget. You're in the shower. You're like, I'll remember that an hour from now. No, you won't. You probably won't. So somehow do something, use technology, use paper and pen, I don't know, your phone, but use something to capture those moments because those combined together might lead to something that opens a new door for you in your writing. So figure out what works for you and do that.
Absolutely, man. That is very good advice. Right? It's like you said, be a sticky ball.
Yeah, we need that in our writing. So when somebody comes to your books, Joe, for the first time, I want to make sure it's really clear for them. Is there a starting point for you as a new reader to come to your library? Like, where do you
Uh,
send us first?
the Where you really want to start would probably be Tempest of Shadows.
Okay.
A Tempest of Shadows, which is Chronicles of the Bard King, Book One. Right? It
Okay.
is uh the first book of the series. Right.
Okay.
Now, canonically, the way that it actually works is the two side novels from Tales of the Satori. They're actually characters in the main series telling the story to somebody else.
Oh.
So the moment when they actually tell the story to somebody else will actually happen somewhere between book two and book three, but it's telling of events that happened before the first book.
Okay. Yeah.
They're both completely fine as standalone.
Yeah. All right. From all of the characters that you have in all the different books, who captures your fascination the most? Like which one of these characters are you like, oh, if I could have a moment with this one character, which one would it be?
Man, I love them all so much. They're like my babies. Lissa, Lissa Renaud.
Okay.
She
Yeah.
is the Crimson Lily. She's my little ball of chaos. I she goes through a lot of traumatic experiences in Shadow of the Crimson Lily, and it deeply affects her.
Okay.
And she winds up with almost a borderline personality. Uh, she's a wonderfully deep character that she does things because she just wants to feel anymore.
Hmm.
Right. And she's to equate her to any other character, she's very much like a medieval fantasy version of Harley Quinn.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good visual.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
She's a little cracked and a little bit crazy. She cares deeply about the people she cares for.
Yeah.
Right. And she will murder somebody if they annoy her.
Hmm. Okay, so she walks into your space there where you are, sits down across from you. You can ask her one question that you don't know the answer to about her or in her character. One question you can ask that would just kind of be like, I don't really know the answer to this question, so I'm going to ask her. What would be the question that you would ask her as your character in your book?
Man, that's a deep question. What would I
It's
want to
meant to
ask her?
it's meant to spark that idea that
Right?
I don't know this about her. I don't know this piece.
Right? I think I'd spend so much time in her headspace, though. Uh, uh, if she could, hmm, what is her one regret?
Oh, like in life or a specific regret?
In the way that she's handled things after the events of Shadow of the Crimson Lily,
Okay.
right? Because I know what her regret is in that book,
Yeah.
right? Like her regret is the inability to save somebody, right? But after that, I want to know what she regrets. Which I mean, she's a fantastic character. I love her.
Do you have two-way conversations with your characters while you're writing?
Absolutely.
Okay. They talk to you as well?
Absolutely. I talk to my characters. I try to write dialogue in a way when I'm talking to them. And it's one of the things that I do when I'm trying to get through writer's block
Okay.
is I'll have full on conversations with role played conversations with sometimes actually I use Chat GPT for it.
Really?
I'll have a played conversation and have a conversation with the program talking back to me
Okay.
because it brings you into a comfort zone. I have of a casualness, and it can help me talk through ideas. If I don't have my cousin, my cousin
Yeah.
Jareth, my co-author, which I mean, greatest thing I ever did in the world was deciding to do this with him
Yeah.
because the ability to talk through things with somebody. But like yeah, like I said, I work graveyard shift at 3 in the morning when I don't have somebody to talk to. Sometimes talking to the computer's pretty good.
So talk more about co-authoring. Like, how do you divide up the work? How do you divide up the ideas? How much communication's happening between the two of you? Like, how does that actually work? Like,
uh,
logically.
well, honestly, I don't think I could do it with anybody else.
Okay.
Right? We're very close. Like he's about 10 years younger than me. But when I first moved back from Texas, he was staying with my parents, and he was, 15, 16 years old, and just, getting towards a senior in high school. And then his first home away from home, he lived with me. Right. So we're very close. He's more like my little brother. He's my best friend. There's nothing
Yeah.
in the world I wouldn't do for him. But we have a relationship where we can both be very direct and very blunt with one another without hurting each other's feelings,
Hmm.
right? Which I think that's the only reason that it works.
Yeah.
Like if you write something and I think it sucks, I can tell you, hey, bro, that sucks.
Yeah.
You're like, what the hell are you thinking? You're crazy, right?
Yeah.
And we can criticize and critique each other in that manner without offending one another, right?
So it makes you both better then.
Right. It makes both of us much better.
Yeah.
And we talk constantly, nonstop. I mean, it's like one of my worst things ever is trying to search back through one of our text conversations for anything.
Right.
Uh,
So what is his superpower in writing that's different than yours? How does he complement you?
well, our approach to it is a little different because each one of the books has multiple storylines ongoing at the same time. So I don't touch his storylines.
Okay.
He doesn't touch my storylines unless it's to critique or edit or something like that. Right.
Yeah.
So we pretty much allow it to be individual separate writing altogether. But he grew up learning from me. So our writing styles are super similar. He can be more blunt in his writing than I can.
Okay.
I have a tendency to be a little more nuanced, a little more uh a little softer. Right? He can be very blunt with it, but he's really grown into a very good writer in his own right, man. I'm very proud of him. It wasn't something that he wanted to do initially.
There was a seed though that you saw in him.
Yeah, there was a scene I saw when
Yeah.
he was younger. He would write little snippets and he'd send them to me, and I would rewrite it and add my flowery language to it and then send it back to him. And he'd be like, it was kind of like steroids for words for him.
Nice.
But he's pushed me probably more than anybody over the last decade. You need to finish a story, bro. You need to finish. You need to finish. You need to finish. Just finish a book. I just want to read a book that you wrote. So when I decided to do this, I just asked him, come with me, bro. Come with me. Do it with me.
Yeah.
Right. And it's been like that ever since.
So I got your website up while we're chatting. I love the covers of your books. Like,
Thank you.
they're beautiful. Can you talk more about the design of your books and what goes on behind the scenes of making this come to life?
My mother, my grandmother, grandparents, and my mother, and my aunt Jareth's mother actually, were all antique dealers. Right. I grew up in a family full of antique dealers, and have been exposed to a lot of the Victorian style art and the Victorian style era art, and a very big fan of Baroque.
Hmm.
Baroque and Lakota.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. I just had an image idea one day. Me and Jareth were looking, trying to find a professional cover artist to do a cover for us. And we spent 2, 3 weeks working, trying to get a cover artist to come up with a cover for Tempest. And everything that we got sent back, none of them could capture what we wanted to see. None of them could capture what we wanted to see. Every one of them was completely 100% AI generated,
Hmm.
no editing in it whatsoever. And it was just really poor. And this was through a dozen, 2 dozen different artists we found on Fiverr,
Yeah.
right? And I got discouraged. And I finally said, you know what, man? I'll do it myself.
Wow.
I'll absolutely see what I can do and see if I can't do it myself. And I got the Baroque images for the background, and I just really, I don't know, it just I see it in my head. Now
Yeah.
that's somewhere where Jareth helps me a lot. He will nitpick the hell out of me when I'm doing a cover. You need to bring that medallion in by about 3% and twist it to the left a little bit.
Nice.
He nitpicks the hell out of me where I'm doing. I'll actually cuss him when I'm designing a cover. Oh,
Wow.
but
I love it.
yeah,
They're
no,
beautiful, though, Joe.
I see him in my head, man. It's really what
Yeah.
it is. It's just, I don't know. I come from a family of artists. My mother's a magnificent artist, right? My little brother is one of the best sketch artists I've ever seen in my life. Jareth is an artist in his own right. I can't draw to save my life,
Yeah.
right? But picking colors and design and overlaying and the tools for editing, I'm not terrible at. I'm pretty good with it.
Yeah. It's amazing. Joe, I could talk to you all day about this, but I know you got stuff to do as well. You got to write more books, by the way.
I'm actually 10
T-
chapters into book 3.
of course you are. Take us to the website again. You mentioned it earlier, but take us there. And I have one more question I kind of want to wrap up our conversation with
The
near the end here.
website,
But take us through the website again, the website address, and
uh-huh.
what we're going to see when we get there.
The website is thebardking.com. Right,
Okay.
one word, THEBARDKING.com. When you go there, you'll see the first thing on the banner as I did a special edition ish type book that's exclusive for only through that link that you can get the
Okay.
price on. Right, it is a dust jacketed version of the book. It has a beautiful faux brown leather cover with a great dust jacket of the purple and magenta Baroque cover. And actually, Banksy's what inspired those covers. The silhouette.
Really?
Yeah, Banksy
Yeah.
inspired those silhouette covers, the stencil art.
Ah. Yeah.
Right. And but that version of the book is 712 pages. It's not just Shadow Symphony. In the back of it, I actually included Shadow of the Crimson Lily as a bonus with it. Uh
Oh.
yep. All the print books actually have full page chalk art renderings at the beginning of every chapter, right? And through that link, you can get that book for 50% off of cover price, which any authors that go through Ingram Spark, you know, that you have an exorbitant price that you have to be able to do to give the retailers a 55% discount.
Yeah.
I give my guys the same discount through the website,
Okay.
right?
Good.
Uh, Other than that, you can go in there. There are updates that I try to keep up with. I haven't done one here recently. Uh, and there is my blog series that in there has bunches of great little tips for authors trying to learn.
Yeah.
Different terminologies, different things that you need to do. My full catalog of books that are in there. I don't think there's a lot more.
Yeah.
There
I see
is.
your blog. I see there too, and a Facebook group.
I do have the Facebook group, The Troop. Unfortunately, that group has just died off.
Has it? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. There's nobody joined it. Nobody joined it
Yeah.
at all. There is my Facebook page, which is Chronicles of the Bard King on
Okay.
Facebook. Uh, I post in there regularly, right?
Good.
But it is just me in there posting.
Yeah.
I can be followed on Joe Herod author on X. I believe with Joe Herod 75 on Twitter or on Instagram.
Good.
I'm on all the social media platforms. I can't think of what all the links are right now off the top of my head. There are links to all of them on the page.
Excellent. We'll have links in the show notes as people are listening on their phone. They can
Uh-huh.
click right on their phone right now and go right to you. So we'll make sure we include that. As we wrap up, Joe, what else? Anything else that you wanted to share with the audience around your writing? Because I do have one question I want to ask you. I want to make sure I give you a kind of an opportunity to wrap it up.
If there was anything I would want to say about the writing, is the books and the story itself really is just getting going. Uh, it's a deep, expansive saga more than it is just a story, and there's a lot to come with it. There's a lot that comes with it, and if you really enjoy world building, I think it's a book that you can really sink your teeth into because it's built around world building and it's built around the personalities of multiple characters.
You said your dad was a lover of books. I am sure that each one of these would be in his library, and he would be quite proud of these. What do you think he would think of all this as a lover of books, knowing that his son wrote these books?
Man, whew, kind of took the wind out of my sail on that one, Bubba. Uh, I really think, I really think you would enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think you would enjoy it immensely. It's not his style of story that he would read, but I believe it's something that he would love.
Knowing the source who wrote it,
Right.
right?
I mean, he
And
had
then
the
having that
original.
manuscript, right? He had the original.
Right.
So it's good to think about that sometimes, I think, what
Yeah.
his response would be to all this, right?
Yes, sir.
Because had he not done what he had done for you and modeled it when you were young, might not be having this conversation right now.
We may not. We may not. It's something my mother, she's a great supporter of it, which her vocation, she was a linguist. So she is probably my biggest supporter in the world, right?
Yeah.
She has a library. She has every version of every book of every cover that I've done so far,
There you go.
right?
It's amazing.
Yeah. She loves it, and I don't think she's read the first word of any of them.
I love it. Joe, it sounds like you have a lot of great support. You have a lot of great people in your corner to keep you writing, to keep you moving forward, which is awesome. Excited to have you here on the show. And as you do new projects in the future, I would love for you to come back and give us an update because the listeners of the show, when they fall in love with an author, they want to hear from them again and again and again. So keep me in mind as new things come down the path for you. We'd love to have you come back. And to the listeners, as you're buying Joe's books, wherever you buy them, in person or online, make sure you leave a review. Make sure you leave feedback for Joe because that means so much to our authors to hear your thoughts, your what the book means to you. Because then other people are going to read your comments, and that's going to be the spark for them to also follow your lead and help support these amazing authors. So please, as you listen to this, when you buy every book, every one of his books, because you're going to buy them all, when you buy them all, please leave reviews for each of them because it does mean a lot to Joe.
Something you touched on there, let me tell you. That's I don't know if any authors ever told you, but it's something that we all dream of. The day that we have a fan at all, that we have a fan, that we have somebody that wants to sit down and talk about our story and our world and ask us questions about what we were thinking and know the material. That is something that we all dream of.
Right.
Right. for somebody to fall in love with the characters that we have.
Joe, you got something special, and I know you have to work, you got a job, and you got to do all those things, but just, I want you to know that there's people out there that are eating this up. People are loving this, and they're supporting you. They're your community. As we go, they're listening to this because they saw your name on the episode. They're like, oh my gosh, Joe's on a podcast? I got to hear this. They're listening, so I'm going to give you the opportunity to wrap this up and give your thoughts to your community that support you, love you, buy all of your books. They have them all. What do you want to say to your community as we wrap up?
God bless you, every single one. Thank you so much. There's not enough thanks in the world for any of you to take a little bit of your time out of your life to read something that I wrote, to let me share something with you. My world of Atura is intimate to me, and it's dear to me, and I want everybody to experience it. I want you to find these characters and love the good ones and hate the bad ones. And find a little bit of escape from a world that we live in.
Excellent words, Joe. Well put. And a great way to end. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Everyone, all the information for Joe and all of his amazing books, his website, social media, all that stuff included in the show notes. Please go click all the links. And again, leave an amazing review for every book you buy and buy them all. Joe, thank you so much for being here. Hey, thanks for being here for the Living the Next Chapter podcast. So glad to have you as part of our family of listeners. There's a seat for you just here on Living the Next Chapter, and I'm so happy that you have listened to all the way to the end. Wow, you are now my new bestie. I want to let you know that I host 7 other podcasts on top of Living the Next Chapter. Yep, 8 total. One of them is called the How To Podcast series. If you are thinking, you know what, Dave, this podcast thing seems like a lot of fun, well, I'll give you a secret. It is. It's a great, amazing, fun time where you can get to meet great people, get your word out there, promote your book, promote what your coaching program, whatever you're doing. Podcasting is great. And if you want to learn how to do this, what you're hearing right now, head over to howtopodcast.ca and look up the How to Podcast series on YouTube, whatever app you're listening on. You'll find me there. And I'd love for you to come listen to how to do this. And if you're interested and have questions on how to podcast, reach out to me at howtopodcast.ca. Thank you for listening. Talk soon.